Hello everyone. Hi, my name is Devjit. I'm here to teach you SAT 1 English. Today we will be looking at the language and writing section, the section that checks your grammatical skills. So we are going to go through a passage and we're going to answer some questions which are up to SAT levels. I will give you the reasoning why we are saying the answer in a grammatical sense. Alright. Now in a language and writing paper, what exactly are you tested on? You're tested whether you know how to coordinate between two clauses, like what type of conjunction or what type of half stop or how do you connect two clauses. Tone and style, whether you know what are possessive nouns, what are different types of nouns, adjectives, verbs, pronouns, etc. Whether you know what type of word choice should be used, whether there's logical sequencing, then agreement questions where you may agree with the question paper setter or not. Then sentence punctuations, modifying proposition statements. So these are the simple some of the topics that you will be addressing while we solve this passage. So now let us immediately head into the passage. Understanding the meaning of the passage is not that significant in cases of writing and language section. But yes, you should read through the passage to get a basic gist, because there may be a question relating to something that you've read in the passage. Maybe. And mostly it happens in reading papers, but in this case it may happen too. So, living walls. The practice of building living walls has exploded in popularity in recent years and promises only to increase in the future as a premium continues to be placed on space, greenery and food. Okay, I'll start again. The practice of building living walls, also known as vertical gardens, has exploded in popularity in recent years and promises only to increase in the future as the premium continues to be placed on space, greenery, and food independence in the face of urbanization and global climate change. Living walls are essentially gardens of either decorative or produce plants like leafy greens that, through careful cultivation and construction and the use of hydroponic technology, can be made to flourish inside an urban core. When a vertical garden is built wherever it is built and by whomever it is built, a frame is constructed around a specifically designed vertical irrigation platform. This allows the plants to grow upwards along a specifically designed pattern and in a particular location within a home. Instead of taking up essential floor space, thoughtfully designed vertical gardens can inhabit the negative space along walls, or sometimes even on roofs, growing in specified locations rather than inhabiting entire rooms of a home or apartment. In addition to providing food or greenery, that is practical or aesthetic value, such walls can also help to keep the temperature in an enclosed space down. These gardens, by virtue of being in an enclosed space, also save their owners the trouble of protecting the gardens from insects and rodents. Whereas an outdoor garden may require elaborate fencing to keep away animals and may even require the use of pesticides to keep away bugs. Not to mention growing season limited by weather, indoor gardens are kept a steady temperature year round, and unless the gardener happens to have deers or rabbits running free in their home, are protected from animals. The practice of keeping houseplants for decorative purposes has been common. For many years, but with recent developments in technology, the idea of a potted plant has been expanded, both in terms of its aesthetic potential, example, a whole wall as opposed to an isolated plant on a shelf, and its practical environmental approach, example, a living wall which reuses water and provides food as opposed to purely decorative plant that is maintained with tap water. It is no secret that the world has been undergoing a massive and fundamental shift towards urbanization in the last 2 centuries. Clearly, as people move from the country to the city and from houses to condominiums, or apartments, the possibility of urban dwelling families and individuals growing their own food and plants within their living space only makes more and more sense. In 2014, the World Health Organization estimated that 54% of the world's population lived in cities or suburbs, meaning that almost 4 billion people live in these urban areas. All that is not to say that vertical garden is the perfect solution to all of our problems. The hydroponic system required to maintain these gardens are complicated and require a good deal of energy to maintain, leading critics to question their practical and environmental value. Those concerns are certainly important and probably valid because as the technology continues to develop and urban space continues to become inhabited, the desire city dwellers all have, that is to grow their own fresh vegetables right in their living room, will almost certainly grow as well. So this passage is a very informative passage. It talks about these vertical gardens. So basically what happens is generally people have certain plants in their verandas or in a particular room, or they have a greenhouse if they can afford that. But people are generally attracted towards nature. So this concept of vertical gardening has evolved. What does it do? It's basically wall gardening. You will see in many apartments or complexes, when you enter through the driveway, the entire wall is vertically, gardened. So basically there are plants all over the walls. So this is a new trend that has developed over the last 2 centuries that has developed recently due to excessive urbanization over the last 2 centuries. So people have less space. So it's obvious people don't want to spend money on buying an entire room just for plants. So these are ways how to get around that problem. And plus your walls are generally empty. So vertically if you grow something, it doesn't occupy floor space. So there are many benefits to it. It's aesthetic. It's good for the environment, but then there are certain negatives also. It's the technology required and the cost of the technology required to make this possible. There are both positives and negatives about it, but positives outweigh the negatives, and the author thinks that most probably the trend of vertical gardening will keep increasing along with the increase in urbanization. So that is the main basic theme of the passage. We don't need to get deep into the theme of the passage because this is a passage this is a question paper that will test our writing and language skills, not our reading skills. We've already done some papers on reading skills. You can go and have a look at that. Okay, question 1. So the first question is, as you can see on the left, this portion of the passage. When a vertical garden is built, wherever it is built and by whomever it is built, a frame is constructed around a specifically designed vertical irrigation platform. So is there anything grammatically incorrect about it? That is the question. Leave it as it is, or you have 4 choices. So this is the question. That portion, you leave it as it is and you have your choices here. So first let me tell you, this is a question that is testing your coordination between 2 clauses. Okay. So when a vertical garden is built, let's look at the portion. When a vertical garden is built, wherever it is built and by whomever it is built. So I want to tell you one more thing. This is also testing, how do you connect clauses? Yes, this is connection of clauses. So when you look at this particular topic, you also must know the use of commas. So generally, when we use a comma in a sentence, apart from using it as a separator. So suppose in a sentence you have x, comma, something, 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 comma, y. So when you use a comma in that case, normally the information provided between the 2 commas is additional information which, if removed from the sentence, doesn't make the sentence syntaxically wrong. Okay. So in this, then according to what I told you, if you look at it this way, fine, you can look at it that way for this particular question. So look at the sentence. Whenever a vertical garden is built, a frame is constructed around a specifically designed vertical irrigation platform. That is what the sentence is if we remove the portion which is in between the two commas. So does it change the meaning of it if we remove wherever it is built and by whomever it is built? Because at the beginning of this question we have when a vertical garden is built. Okay. So these are two dependent clauses. Okay. If you take when the vertical garden is built and a frame is constructed. So these two are dependent on each other. So in this case, your answer will be option C. Let's look at the options. Option A, no change, fine. Option B, whenever vertical garden is built, wherever it is built and whoever builds it, a frame is constructed around space design vertical irrigation platform. So option A and B are same. So it is incorrect. Option D, when someone builds a vertical garden, is built. So that is the sentence at the beginning is only incorrect. When someone builds a vertical garden is built. No, when someone builds anything can be built, not a vertical garden only. So that is also incorrect. So the only option remaining here is C. Now what have we done? We have connected the two clauses which are dependent on each other just by a sentence separator with a comma. Okay. The use of commas is to join when there are two clauses, or when there are to join two clauses we often use a comma, or if there are conjunctions. So if you write and, then you write a comma after that, or, but, for, or not, anyone. So in this case there are two clauses, we've just used a comma to connect them. Okay. Now question 2. Slides. Which of the following option provides the most relevant detail? Okay, now let's look at where question 2 is. Such walls can also help to keep the temperature in an enclosed space down. So that is the information that is provided to you. So they are testing your focus and whether you understood the purpose of that statement or anything relevant to that statement in the passage. So let's look at your options. Leave it as it is. Such walls can also help. But how do they help? We don't know that. Keep the temperature down. We don't know how they help to keep the temperature. They're just told to keep the temperature down. If you're getting informative about a topic, you need to go a bit more in detail. So in this case, the author was trying to be informative about these vertical patterns. So you have to tell why the temperature is going down. So let's see. A, no change. Fine. B, such walls can also help to keep the temperature in an enclosed space perfectly regular. No, they're supposed to bring the temperature down. Which of the following option provides the most relevant detail? Now you have to see whether the detail provided is sufficient enough, or if one of the options shows a detail which shows something which provides additional information, which is correct for this passage. Language and writing. That's what they're testing. So you have to be confident about any modifications that they ask of you. Do you change something? Maybe yes. Out here you're not tested on just understanding what you're reading. You may have to change what you're reading and modify it to something better, which is in this case. So which of the following option provides the most relevant detail? Number 1, no change. Leave it as it is, as shown in the passage. Such walls can also help to keep the temperature in an enclosed space down. Or let's look at the other option. Such walls also help to keep the temperature in an enclosed space perfectly regular. No. Regular at different regions are different. It just helps lower the temperature. That's all. Such walls can also help to keep the temperature in an enclosed space down as the plants absorb heat and light. So this is a more in-depth explanation of why these plants are helping you to be plants are helping to bring the temperature down. So this is a very good option which provides more information than what is already there in the passage. Let's look at the last option. Such walls also help to decrease one's energy as they convert the sun's energy into fuel. So no. So option C is the only one that is suitable for replacing what we have. What we have and what option C provides us is quite similar, but with more information as to why the temperature is being brought down. Hence, we select option C. So this is this also tests how you express an idea. They want to test you whether you can accurately tell and give enough info about an idea. What do you think is enough information about any idea? Alright. Question 3. The use of the word elaborate has what effect on the author's description of outdoor gardens? So what are they testing here? What effect does the use of the word elaborate have? So they are trying to see whether you've understood the tone in which the author wants to use the word elaborate. Whether you've understood what type of effect, what style the author has texted, what the author has written, what he has written. So let's go to the question. Elaborate. Whereas an outdoor garden may require elaborate fencing to keep away animals and may even require the use of pesticides to keep away bugs. So this is a term, elaborate, is used to emphasize the fact of the requirements of upkeep for an outdoor garden. So an outdoor garden requires elaborate fencing to keep animals away, even pesticides are required, but indoor you don't require. That's what he goes on to say in the passage. So what impact is elaborate having? Let us look at the options. It helps convey the ornate nature of some garden fences. Ornate nature of some garden fences. So what is the meaning of ornate? Ornate generally means excessive, highly decorated something. Something that's ornate is very highly decorated. So no, fencing doesn't mean you're highly decorating your garden. These are two different things. Fencing is for protection. The fencing may be costly, and it may be difficult to do also, the fencing, because you need more space again. So garden becomes smaller, or you have to buy more land to make the fencing possible probably. But ornate, as in, it doesn't tell that the fencing has to be wonderfully decorated. No. It helps highlight the hassle and complications associated with outdoor gardens. That is exactly what I told you. The problems associated, the negatives, the drawbacks, the upkeep requirements of an outdoor garden. So elaborate has that impact that you have to do a lot of things to keep up or upkeep the garden that you decided to have. Elaborate has that. It highlights. You could have just written, right? Look at the passage. You could have just written, whereas an outdoor garden may require fencing to keep away animals, but elaborate fencing. Why? They wanted to focus on, you have to fence. That is not cheap. You have to put pesticides later on. That is not cheap. That requires a lot of, it's complicated. It requires money. It requires a lot of problems. There will be a lot of problems to overcome. You'll have to contact lots of people for various work. It's a big thing. It's a complicated thing. So to emphasize on the complication, how big it is, they have used the word elaborate. Okay. So this is a question that also tests whether you know the word, what context it has been used. So option B is a probable answer. Option C, it helps ground the description by providing realistic details. No. When you are telling elaborate, you want the portion prior or after the word elaborate to sound big. So if it's a problem, you want it to be a big problem. If it's a solution, it's the best solution. If it's a plan, it's an elaborate plan, meaning it's a very extensive plan. So elaborate has that effect, not to ground you, but rather the opposite. D, it helps demonstrate the greater skill needed to maintain an outdoor garden. No, it helps tell you the greater problems required to maintain, not the skills. Because when we see indoor gardening has new technology involved, but vertical gardening. So I think technically skills required will maybe more in terms of your vertical gardening. But no, if elaborate doesn't, it would have been written, it would take elaborate skills to make a fence, So they just wanted to focus on the problems. So option B, it helps highlight the hassle and complications associated with outdoor gardens. Okay. Now next question. Question 4. Let us look at which portion of the passage the fourth question is from. Animals. Okay, so there's an apostrophe after S. So we know what is used as wrong, number 1. Alright. So let's read the sentence. Indoor gardens are kept a steady temperature year round, and unless the gardener happens to have deer or rabbits running free in their homes, are protected from animals. So this is a very simple question. It is just testing whether you know how to use a possessive pronoun, a possessive noun or a pronoun. Anyone. You can take it that way. So, animals. Can we write animals with an apostrophe at the end? We all know that that is incorrect. So I'm going to give you a second just to figure out what should we write. Animal, comma, S. Animal as in the singularity version of it, not the plurality. Or D, animals. Now, animal apostrophe S. Okay, so now let's look at the options. No change. First of all, no change is incorrect. There is no apostrophe after S. Okay? We all know how to use apostrophes. It's not that. Option B. Animal apostrophe S. Now, animal apostrophe S signifies multiple animals. Understand the difference, okay? It signifies multiple animals. Alright? Option C. Animal is singular. It is defining are protected from animal. No, everything else is plural before that. Everything, subjects, verbs, everything else is plural. So to maintain uniformity in this sentence, it has to be a plural word. It cannot be a singular animal. Option D, animals without an apostrophe. What is the difference between D and D? So D shows possessive nouns. So it is referring to a group like humans. Okay? And animals is referring to multiple animals. So we have, I can tell you the example by telling you there are 50 different types of animals in the zoo. And that's where you will use the apostrophe. And if I tell you, we humans have distincted ourselves from animals in the sense that we have learned how to use the potential of our brain. There you do not use an apostrophe. So now you understand the exact difference. between the two options provided. Okay, so this is a possessive noun, and yes, animals is the correct answer. Okay, these are used to define groups of people. So in this sentence, if you see, if you use a possessive noun, if you use option D, you can tell that, and unless the gardener happens to have deer or rabbits running free in their home, are protected from animals. So it shows that since this vertical guard is in indoors and it is not outside, so no animal from this whole group of animals that we call can come and affect it in any way. Inside your house, there won't be any animals. Okay, not multiple number, any one from the group. So option D is your answer. These are standard English conventions. Okay. Now next question, question 5. Which of the following best emphasizes the potential importance to how the vertical gardens work? So this is a question that is again testing choice of words basically. Which word will be best suited to describe? So, but with recent developments in technology, the idea of a potted plant has been expanded both in terms of its aesthetic potential and its practical environmental applications. Aesthetic potential, example, a whole wall as opposed to an isolated plant on a shelf. Now the word they have used is aesthetic. So the options provided will tell us whether that particular word is correct or can we use another word. So aesthetic is like appreciating something with nature. You know, anybody who wants to be one with nature in a way, or it has three many meanings. Aesthetic. In this case, it means someone who is concerned with appreciating and understanding the principles of nature, or someone who wants to be closer to nature. An aesthetic whole, it also means your philosophical outview. Lots of versions of aesthetic exist. Basically, it means to have the spiritual whole about yourself through anything, through maybe love of nature, through maybe something else, maybe love of the poor, or whatever. So aesthetic potential, in this case it is love of nature because we're talking about gardens. So now let's look at other words. So no change, okay. Ascetic. Ascetic is basically name of an acid. Acetic acid. Okay, so basically ascetic is not anything that is anything remotely close to aesthetic. It's something vinegar oriented. Any liquid with vinegar, we call it aesthetic. Artistic. Artistic, when it comes to nature and people wanting to live with a vertical garden, they don't exactly hope to fulfill an artistic requirement in their soul by making a garden. No. Then you wouldn't have that vertical garden. Then you would make an outdoor garden. Because artistic is very different than aesthetic. Okay. So artistic is also an option. Okay. Visual. So if you replace the word here with visual, the idea of potted plant has been expanded both in terms of its visual potential and its practical environmental application. So visual potential. So in this case, the author is trying to show that people who want to build gardens, they want to do it for inner peace, inner happiness, inner desires. Visual potential is completely the opposite. External. Visual potential means you want external validation. If you want external validation, why will you want to, if you want something that's visually beautiful, like a garden, why would you want it on your wall indoors? You would rather have it outdoors, where people can see because it is visually beautiful. So no, aesthetic potential is the right word? The answer here in this case is 5A. No change. They have used the right word. Okay. This is just checking word choice, guys. So if you know the meaning of the words that are presented to you, these answers will be pretty easy. How do you get to know the meaning? Words don't just fall out of the sky. You need to read some books. And when you don't understand a word, look through it in a dictionary. What I used to do, I used to read through a lot of books. Sentences where I didn't understand the word, I tried to decipher the word according to what it may mean, according to what the sentence says. Most of the time I was right, but there were a lot of occasions when I was wrong. So I would suggest you read books and go through dictionary. Because words have different meanings and may sound like it mean one thing. You may think artistic actually suits here, because garden is something you build on your own. You start from the grassroots. You basically paint a canvas on the floor. But if you know the meaning of aesthetic, then you will not even get confused as to why it may or may not be artistic. So read. Question 6. To make this paragraph the most logical, the underlined sentence would best be placed. So let's look at this underlined sentence. While reading, we did notice there were certain abnormalities in the passage, which is normal for a language and writing and language exam, because they want you to correct those abnormalities. Hence, they have placed it. That is why while reading it, I didn't ask you to pay too much focus on what the main theme of this passage is, because of the various errors that they do for them to ask questions to you. Okay, so clearly the portion that they are asking you, where exactly should this portion be placed in the passage, is clearly as people move from the country to the city and from houses to condominiums or apartments, the possibility of urban dwelling families and individuals growing their own food and plants within their living space only makes more and more sense. So, is it at the right position? Do you feel? Because see, this is okay. Now what is this question exactly testing? It's pretty simple. It's testing whether you know the logical sequence of how a written passage should be. What should come after what? You cannot tell something like Proxima Centauri is the closest star without actually knowing that sun is a star. Every sequence of events has to make sense. So this is testing that. So let's see the options presented. Number 1 will be leave it as it is. Okay, no change. Fine. At this point, you can argue that maybe it's supposed to be here. Okay. Okay, now let's look at the other options. B. The sentence is irrelevant and incoherent and should be removed entirely. So they're telling the sentence doesn't make sense and is not important enough to be included at all. But no, this is completely wrong, because that exactly is the statement which this passage is using to support its idea of vertical gardening. No matter what points you give, unless you environmental points or whatever, people will not care unless that point relates to them. Sadly, that's how society is. So even if something is helping the environment but not helping me, or not affecting me in any way, or is not a product that I can use, I won't be interested in that. So similarly, they give that reason. As many people are moving from the countryside, as in villages, towns, to bigger cities, the possibility of growing own food becomes important, because yes, prices are very high. So they have tried to lure people in by that point, by telling you can do lots of things. You can grow a garden as well as grow some food, which may help you. Okay. So that is not, it shouldn't be omitted. It has to be there. It makes no positive sense by omitting it. Okay, so option C, at the beginning of the paragraph. So let's look at this paragraph and see if at the beginning of the paragraph the sentence, okay, it's no secret that the world has been undergoing a massive and fundamental shift towards urbanization in the last 2 centuries. Clearly, as people move from, no. So you cannot start the paragraph by clearly as people move from the country, blah blah blah, and then write it is no secret that the world is undergoing a massive and fundamental shift towards urbanization in the last 2 centuries. No. If you write the lines given here are written as a supportive point to the first statement. Okay, first letter, it is no secret. Why? Because clearly people are moving from here to here. So, no, it cannot be before what is written at the beginning of the paragraph. It has to be after the beginning. It may not be where it is right now, but it has to be after the beginning, because the beginning just states. It's no secret. Option D, at the end of the paragraph following the sentence citing a World Health Organization statistic. Let's look at this. So at the end of the paragraph, yes, so meaning that almost 4 billion people lived in these urban areas. So this is a proper choice because there is a statistic that shows, first you have given a statistics, the World Health, first you write this part. So this entire paragraph I will read it out to you and explain to you why the structure is correct. So you start off, it is no secret that the world has been undergoing a massive and fundamental shift towards urbanization in the last 2 centuries. Then in 2014, the World Health Organization estimated that 54% of the world's population lived in cities or suburbs, meaning that almost 4 billion people lived in these urban areas. Clearly, as people move from countries to cities and from houses to condominiums or apartments, the possibility. So, you see, the first 2 statements, if we organize it in the order as option D has stated, the first 2 statements, the first statement is an introduction, the second statement is the statistics, and the third statement is the reason why vertical gardening is becoming popular due to these statistics. Clearly, as people move from country to city. So, where has a statistic been shown where a lot of people are moving from country to city? So that we can write clearly. So, that is shown in this World Health Organization line, 54%. So once you write the line, so you have a statistic. Now you're writing clearly as the stat shows people are moving from here to here. So yes, option D is the best and logical choice for this. This is checks your command in evidence also, but more importantly, it's logical sequence. So where exactly, when can you put something in a passage that will make maximum impact in coordination with previous statements? Alright, logical sequence. Question 7. No change. Okay, so the line here is in 2014, the World Health Organization estimated that 54% of the world's population lived in cities or suburbs, meaning that almost 4 billion people lived in these urban areas. So line 7 in 2014. So it's a, there's a semicolon used here. Okay. What do you mean by using a semicolon in between 2 statements? It means these are 2 independent clauses. Alright. Meaning both the sentences can be written individually and there wouldn't be any syntactual error. But since we have the same topic in both the sentences, we have chosen to connect them using a semicolon, even though they are independent clauses. Alright, this is just information about the grammatical point of view. Now let's look at the options in this first clause. The question is in the first clause. So, what do you think they're testing here? First of all, they are just testing your internal sentence punctuations. Okay, should you separate these 2 sentences? So these are 2 sentences, these are 2 clauses that have been combined to make 1 sentence. So how do you separate these 2 clauses? Do you separate it with a semicolon, or do you separate it with a comma, or do you separate it with a full punctuation? So according to the part provided, they have given a semicolon, which is indicating that these are two independent clauses. Okay, that is, they can be written on their own. Let's look at the other options. These are basically checking your conventions, how you know how to use your punctuation. So 1, no change, leave it as it is. B, in 2014, the World Health Organization, comma, there is a comma, okay, between the two clauses. C, there is a full stop, so they have separated the clauses completely. They have taken it out of the sentence. And D, the World Health Organization estimated that 50% lived in cities or suburbs, ... Continue, without any punctuation, basically. So now you tell me which option do you think, I'm giving you a minute, do you think that should be correct? Which sentence separator, comma, full stop, or no sentence separator at all? Okay, so now I'll tell you. Your correct answer is option B. Okay, a simple comma will suffice. Now, again, I want to emphasize, when do you use a comma? You use commas to separate independent clauses. And when they are joined by any of the 7 coordinating conjunctions. So, and, but, for, or, nor, so, yet. Use a comma after these, or when we used to separate independent clauses. Okay. So, in this case, in this case, the two clauses are independent, meaning what? Each clause has a subject and a verb. In 2014, the World Health Organization. So, subject is World Health Organization. Estimation is the verb. The action performed is estimated. Okay, of the world's population lived in cities or suburbs, anyway. So, if you write a comma there, meaning that almost 4 billion people lived in these urban areas, so it is continuing on in the same topic, further explaining what it has written. Okay, hence we are using these commas. So, another reason why you use a comma is to break down a sentence. Okay? Just to make sure that structurally the sentence is manageable. So you write 2 sentences. So if you wouldn't have used a comma, you would have had to read it continuously, and maybe the sentence may have become a bit complicated for us. Okay. You use a comma to separate 2 or 3 more words or phrases or clauses used continuously in a sentence. There are various rules of using a comma. Various rules. There are about around 12 to 13 rules of just how you use a comma. So I cannot go through all the rules, guys. So I'm just giving you the basic concepts. If you want to go through all the rules, please go to the internet, and it will be presentable, or through the study material provided here, and you'll get to understand exactly why option B has been selected. Comma. I've told you, but I don't think you may have understood it. Okay. Question 8. Question 8 deals with this sentence. All this is not to say that vertical gardens is the perfect solution to all of our problems. Okay. Now let's look at the question. Leave it as it is, and there are 3 other options. So read this sentence again, guys. I want to see if you look at it yourself. If you understand whether it is correct or wrong in the first place, then we'll think, if it is wrong, we'll think about the changes that need to occur. First, you need to understand whether it is correct or wrong. Now let's look at our options. First option, no change. What is this testing agreement skills, I'd say. Agreement, whether these passages are agreeing with each other. The next sentence and the next sentence that is presented after this and this sentence has to agree with each other. Okay, so we have to test that. Remember, in grammar you have to look at the sentences before and after to get the syntax correct. Okay? All that is not to say, okay, first option is no change. So no change if all that is not to say that vertical gardens is the perfect solution to all of our problems. Option B. All that is not to say that vertical gardens are being the perfect solution to all of our problems. So our being the perfect solution to all of our problems is not correct. This is simple. Everybody knows one. Okay. Now option C. All this is not to say that vertical gardens are the perfect solutions to all our problems. So look at the difference between this option and what is written. All this is not to say that vertical gardens is the perfect solution to all of our problems. Okay. And here it is, all this is not to say that vertical gardens are the perfect solution to all our problems. So this is where the difference is between the is and the that. Alright, now you tell me which is a more suitable one, is or that. Let's look at the last option also. All this is not to say that vertical gardens were the perfect solution to all of our problems. So vertical gardening is not something in the past. Okay. So were the perfect solution to all our problems is not correct. So it has to be either option C or we leave it as it is. So again, let's look at the two options. These options are pretty confusing. Okay. All this is not to say that vertical gardens is the perfect solution to all our problems. So is, and this one, all that is not to say is the vertical gardens are the perfect solution. So vertical gardens, you have used plurality. Okay, it's called subject-verb agreement. Okay, it's a rule in grammar called subject-verb agreement or disagreement, whichever way, in which the subject and the verb have to match in singularity and plurality. So here you are saying vertical gardens are. So there's multiple present because you can count the number of gardens, not only the number of grass blades, but you can count the number of gardens. So it's a finite word, finite multiple. But is, all that is to say that vertical gardens is the perfect solution is singular. In this term, you are treating vertical gardens as a concept. So is this concept right? No, vertical gardens is not a concept. It's a practicality that is happening. So you use the word are. You have to understand subject-verb agreement. That's why I told you this is about agreement. Agreement of what? Plurality and singularity. Okay. So option C is your answer. Okay. Now next question. Question 9. The writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should he or she do so, and why or why not? So now this question is very interesting. It will test whether you know or whether what you think. Will you modify what the author has written to make something sound better or something project better, or will you leave it as the author has done? So let's look at the portion first, which the question has asked us to change or not change according to our requirements. The hydroponic systems required to maintain these gardens are costly, complicated, and require a good deal of energy to maintain, leading critics to question their practical and environmental value. Okay. Now let's look at the options. This is a very, it's a correct statement. Nothing wrong with the statement, but author is considering deleting. So do you think it should be deleted? I don't think so, because this shows, look at the next sentence, those concerns are certainly important and probably valid. Okay, so what are these concerns that are important that we need to address? So this gives us information about the concerns. So it is useful text, so it cannot be deleted. It should not be deleted, sorry, it can be deleted, but it should not be deleted. So first, you have to understand whether it is yes or no. So no, it should not be deleted. So A and B are gone. Options A and B, no need to look at. So you have two more options, C and D. So let's look at now, why do we think it should not be eliminated? Let's look at what the choices are provided. First, no, the underlying sentence provides useful context that supports the passage's overall argument about the popularity and viability of vertical gardens. Popularity and viability? No, it doesn't address popularity and viability at all. This line addresses the problems that are faced, not why it is popular or why it is easy to make. No, it is addressing why it is difficult to do so. So, by elimination, we are only left with B, which should be the answer. Let's read. No, the underlying sentence provides useful context and lends the author's argument legitimacy by providing and addressing alternative viewpoints. Yes, this shows us that the author is not a one-track minded guy where he is looking at only one view, one thing about this, what is good about it. He is also looking at what is bad about it, and then how do we overcome that. So this makes his argument more legitimate, as in he is not someone who just believes what he's doing is correct or what he's saying is correct. He believes what he is saying has problems in it, but he can overcome and solve these problems. So it provides certain genuinity and certain trust is developed by the reader on the author about this topic. That yes, he is not just blindly supporting it. He is giving us both the views, positive and negative, and he's telling us how we can overcome the negative because the positives outweigh the negatives. That is the way you can approach it. So yes, option D. By process of elimination, we got option D as the answer. Now, I think this is the last question of this passage. No, there are two questions more. Okay, fine. Question 10. Because. So let's read the portion. I'm sure you can see on your screen. Those concerns are certainly important and probably valid because as the technology continues to develop, so here because is used to connect to sentences. First is what is done, that is those concerns are certainly important and valid. Okay. Why are they valid? Because the technology continues to develop and other things continues to become more inhabited. Okay. Fine. So now let's look at the options for instead of because. But as the technology continues to develop and urban space continues to become inhabited. Okay. So but is because here it's incorrect. Okay. Because it is not, as I thought it would go on to say something that is related to that, but no. So because here is incorrect. So no change is incorrect, as you can all see. Now let's look at but. Okay, now let's read the sentence. Okay, one question. What do you think this is checking? It is checking how you coordinate between your clauses. What word are you using? Because two clauses may mean completely different things. So, excuse me. So what you use to connect these two clauses brings out the similarity or difference between the clauses. Okay. So those concerns are certainly important and probably valid. Because as the technology continues, because implies the first clause and the second clause are related in theme to each other. The second clause explains why the first clause takes place. Okay, it's not dependent or independent. We're just discussing two clauses here. Now, if you put the word but, it makes way more sense because the second clause of this sentence goes on to say, even though it is certainly the concerns are important and probably valid, but as the technology continues to develop, the urban space continues to become inhabited. So he tells, even though, basically, because if you would have started the sentence with even though those concerns are certainly important, then also it would have put your point across. The but here would let you know that there's a contrasting ideas between the two clauses. When do we use a but? The word but. When we say something like this technology is perfect, but this happened. So when we want to tell something that is an exception to what is happening, then we use the word but. So which is quite contradictory to what is happening. So what is stated in the first clause and what is stated in the second clause in this sentence is contradictory. First one is addressing concerns, second one is telling but technology is developing. So the use of the word but is absolutely correct. After, no, delete because the first word of the sentence should be as those concerns are highly important. No, as also implies that after reading the first clause of this sentence, you are going to expect a solution to that first clause, to the problems. But here they are telling no, the problems are there, but technology is evolving. So these problems may go away. There may be another way of doing it altogether. Not you have to solve this problem necessarily. And even though there are problems, the requirement is increasing. So you have to overcome these problems. Something like that. So your answer is option B, but. Okay. It was testing simple coordination between clauses. Now your last question for this passage. How can the underlying portion best be rewritten to convey the author's conclusion more efficiently? So the conclusion here is, the desire city dwellers all have, that is to grow their own fresh vegetables right in their living room, will almost certainly grow as well. So he wants to end the passage in a way telling that the requirement and demand for city dwellers to have vertical gardens will grow. Okay? The demand for them, their demand of fresher food may grow. So first he tells urbanization is growing. Then he tells due to urbanization, people in cities are demanding more of this. So he's trying to have an impact on, maybe it is a solution or it is a consequence of urbanization, vertical gardening. So should it be left as it is, or should we try and change it? Now this is testing something called coincision. What is coincision? Do anyone know? So they are testing whether, again, what to say, whether you can make it more to the point, more concise. Alright, so they want to test you whether they have given a sentence that states so, but do we need to write so much? Or do we need to write more? How much do we need to write? And what do we need to write? You have to be precise, concise in expressing the point that you're trying to provide. So no change is first, okay, fine. Second one, the desire city dwellers all have is to grow. Okay. Option C, the desire of city dwellers to grow. Okay. And option D, the desire of city dwellers to grow, the desire of city dwellers that is to grow. No. Option D is absolutely incorrect. So A, B, C. Now let's look at option B. So let's read the sentence. But as technology continues to develop and urban space continues to become inhabited, the desire city dwellers all have is to grow their own fresh vegetables right in their own living room. No, this states that all city dwellers want to do is grow vegetables on their home. So it's telling every single city dweller has a desire to grow food at home. No, that if you frame the sentence this way, this is what it would mean. So no, incorrect. Option C, the desire of switching to do it, or not stating that it is an absolute requirement. No, a desire to do that will increase vertical gardening. Okay. So this is basically how to. They are also testing you how should you express an idea by telling everyone needs it. No. Everyone wants it. No. The trends are such that you may want to do this. Is how they are trying to portray this idea to you. Okay, it is not remember, vertical gardening is not a requirement of life. So it has to show value in other facets that a person would spend extra time doing it, rather than doing something that is essential to life. No. Taking time out, taking effort out, investing in financially. So why? There are you have to give various aesthetical reasons. So this is also one of these. This is a trend. It's trying to show it's a trend. It's trying to portray it as a trend. That as people get urbanized, this thought of having vertical gardens in the houses will grow. People will want to eat fresher food from their own home. It's cheaper, right? And it's even if it's not cheaper, it is more fulfilling when you grow something on your own and eat it. It'll add a lot, not just vitamins for the body. No. And it helps you put your mind at ease. So yes. So we've done 11 questions today. All 11 tested 11 different skills. And that is extremely good because you have all done questions on coordination between clauses, improving focus, tone, then noun, possessive nouns, word choice, logical sequencing, subject-verb agreement, modifying statements, punctuations, coordination between clauses, and precision and concise arrangement of a statement. So all these things have been addressed today. I would suggest if certain answers you do not understand why, you will have to look at it grammatically in the sense of how a comma is used, what exactly is a clause, what is the difference between a phrase, a clause, and a sentence, how do we separate these three, what punctuations do we use for each. I can provide you the reason why the answer is the answer. That is like me telling you the formula of a question. Suppose Bernoulli's theorem, and I just tell you this is the formula for that theorem. You have to read and understand the theorem on your own to understand the formula. Similarly, in this case, you will have to go through these punctuation uses on your own and understand it, and then you will get to know why I have selected this answer. I've given you a reason, but to understand that reason, you may have to, maybe some of the questions. I do not know, but maybe. So thank you. That is all for today, and we will meet again soon, and hopefully you enjoyed learning English with me. Thank you.